Hi GED students, today we're going to look at question 2 of our practice test questions for science. So this question talks about the energy pyramid, and you can see here we have a drawing of a pyramid, and it's in labels that show us the different levels of a pyramid. So let's take a minute to talk about what exactly an energy pyramid is. This is a way of representing the energy that flows from one organism to another in a food chain. In nature. So at the very bottom of the energy food pyramid, this is the highest amount of energy down here, the greatest amount of energy. And these are what we call producers. We also can refer to these as autotrophs, with auto is a prefix that means self. And so autotrophs are self-producing of their own energy. So for example, plants are autotrophs or producers. And so they use the sunlight to produce energy and sustain life. And then we go up one level, and the primary consumers, or what we might also call heterotrophs, do not make their own energy, they consume it. So FYI, we are obviously, as humans, we are heterotrophs or consumers because we are not able to make our own energy like plants. So we must consume other living organisms to get our food. So producers or plants down here use the sunlight to grow. When the next level, the primary consumers eat the producers, that energy is transferred, but there is a loss of energy from one level to the next. So when you go from this level to this level, only about 10% of the energy of say the plants that this level of primary consumers eat gets transferred and stored up in the primary consumers. So then when a secondary consumer comes along and eats a primary consumer, again, there's a loss of energy, and only about 10% of the energy from the primary consumers gets stored in the secondary consumers. And then, of course, the tertiary consumers come along and eat the secondary consumers, and there's a loss of energy again. And so the pyramid is a visual way of representing that as we go up to each level, there is less and less energy available. And this is related to, if you've ever heard how, meat is a much less efficient way of growing or raising food than plants are, because it takes a lot more energy to get, pound for pound, the same amount of food as it did with the plants. So let's talk real quick about examples of what sorts of organisms are at each level. So a producer, for example, might be a plant. So let's write like a grass. A primary consumer might be a grasshopper that eats the plants. And then a primary consumer gets eaten by a secondary consumer. So a secondary consumer might be a frog that eats a grasshopper. Oops, let's make that look a little better. And then finally, a tertiary consumer is something that would eat a frog. So let's say a snake might eat a frog. So we'll put snake up here at the top. Oops, I'm running out of my writing zone there. Okay, so snake. And, to represent this 10% loss, for example, a grasshopper might eat 10 plants in a day to feed just one grasshopper. And then a frog might have to eat 10 grasshoppers. So that would be 100 plants equivalent of energy in order to sustain himself for one day. And a snake might have to eat 10 frogs over a certain time period, which would be 1,000 plants. So there is, to feed that one snake, ultimately we needed 1,000 plants to get just one snake. So that's where the loss of energy comes from. Whereas to get one grasshopper, you only needed originally 10 plants. So, okay, so that's a quick summary of the energy pyramid. Now, let's look at the question and the answer choices. Which statement correctly describes the flow of energy through this pyramid? A, all of the energy from the lower levels is available to the top level. Well, we talked about this energy loss. That is absolutely not true. So it is not question A. So I'm just going to cross that off. B, the producer level directly provides energy for all of the other levels. So the key word that we're looking at here is directly. Directly providing energy means from one level to the next level. So producers directly provide energy to primary consumers. Primary consumers directly provide energy to secondary consumers, and secondary consumers directly provide energy to tertiary consumers. So the producer level does not directly provide energy for all the other levels. It indirectly provides energy through the flow of energy, but not directly. So answer choice B is not correct either. C, the highest amount of energy is transferred between levels that contain consumers. So, if we look at this, consumers are the upper three levels, and the highest amount of energy is transferred actually between the lowest level producer and the next level primary consumer. So answer choice C is not correct either. And answer choice D, we've eliminated all the rest, so hopefully this one looks good. Energy is directly transferred from the primary consumers to the secondary consumers. In order for energy to be directly transferred, it must be between two levels that are one on top of the other. And that is the case from primary to secondary consumers. And so answer choice D is our answer there.